Today, guys, I'll be working on a 2001 Buick Le Sabre. This one has the 3.8 liter V6, a very popular engine in these cars. It's in a lot of GM cars. I'll put in the description which years and models. This one has a head gasket problem. This one's bad. It doesn't even start anymore. What happened was they didn't maintain the coolant system. This is a big one. In one of my videos, it's more important to maintain your coolant system than it is like the oil. I mean, not to let the oil go low, but like if you don't change the oil over 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 miles, it's no big deal. But look, I don't know if you can see in there how cruddy it is in there. Well, anyway, needless to say, it was all corroded. The radiator got clogged and it overheated the engine. So they put a new radiator in, wishful thinking that hopefully, it'll get going again. But, once you overheat them and that's it, they stop misfiring. You warp something, the head gaskets are blown. Good thing about this engine is they're not really that hard to do. It may look like it's a lot of stuff on here, but a couple of reasons. This is a push rod engine. So normally if this was an overhead cam engine, you would have, your timing gears up here, timing belt, a timing chain. You would have to take the whole front cover off and everything. Well, this is a little less involved in that because this is a push rod engine where the chain and timing chain is all the way on the bottom in the block with a case that doesn't, I'm pretty sure it doesn't have to be removed. I did these cars a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure on this model, the front covers don't have to be removed. When you take the heads off, you see the push rods and the rockers, and then once you get everything out of the way, the intake and the valve covers off the intake, and you take the push rods and lifters out, and then I believe you can just take the heads right off without touching any more accessories on the side. It's kind of I'll explain it as I go along. It's kind of easier. Like even in the front over here, and make sure you lubricate, if you're doing this type of engine, you lubricate those exhaust flange bolts and nuts. And basically on this side, the exhaust comes right out with the head. You just take it off from here. That's an easy one. The back I'm going to have to get to and see the situation over there. But what I'm going to do is as I take things off, I'm going to stop the video and explain what I did. I know you don't want to watch me wrenching a video. That's kind of stupid, speeding it up. It doesn't make any sense. All right, you want to learn, how to do it. You want to get it done really fast. That's the way I do my videos. All right, guys. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take off a couple of sensors. I'm going to take the air cleaner off. I'm going to take the throttle body off. I'm going to take the coil pack off. I'm going to take a couple of wiring harnesses off, and I'm going to move things out of the way. And then I'm going to explain what I did, and then we're going to take it from there. So far, I took off the air cleaner. Okay, you got your couple of 10mm bolts here, and there's going to be a screw clamp there. You take the air cleaner off. I'll show you. It's right here. See, that's a screw clamp. All right, you have your little air sensor right there. And then this goes like that. Okay, and that comes right off. You have this little bracket, and the alternator has 1, 2, 3 15mm bolts. Okay, the alternator goes right here. There's going to be one 15mm here, one on top with the bracket that goes to here with a 10mm, and another 15mm bolt that goes here, and then that comes off the alternator. Okay, now what you do is you got to mark your wires. You have your fuel injection wires here. You have your throttle position sensor, idle air control, all over here. Just mark them, take them off, because they're pretty much bent the same way, because this harness is going to have to come off to get the plenum off and to get the intake off. Same thing over here. you just take things off. Whatever's in the way, you just move it out of the way, you see? You don't take off more than you have to, you see? Like, don't take everything off. Just take enough to move it out of the way. And if it's still in the way, you can just disconnect one hose, mark it on both sides, and you move it out of the way. You don't have to take everything off and you have a million parts. It's unnecessary. Okay, so after you do that, take off the serpentine belt. This is the tensioner right here. Relieve the serpentine belt. Right here is where the coil packs went. They sit right here, and hidden, you have a ground wire that's right here that hooks to this one. You take this one off, take this ground wire off, and then you take these two 15 millimeters out, and it slides right out. And that bad boy's right there. You see? The bolts are underneath 1 and 2, and it comes right out. And what you do is mark your spark plug wires too, if you're going to reuse them. See, that's what I do. You mark them. All right, number 1 cylinder is here. It's important, just in case you want to verify what compression on number 1 cylinder. And like what I was trying to say before, is that normally if this was a timing belt or a timing chain, there would be overhead cams on both sides, and you would have a big monstrosity you would have to take out. But you don't have to do that. You see, the head is right here. This head is right here. This is it, right below this thing, this nut. This is the head right here. See, this head almost can come off. See, when you take it off, you're going to have your push rods, because your camshaft is in the middle. There's no overhead camshafts with all the extra work that you would have to do. That's why I was saying it's a little easier. You know, there's still a lot of things in the way, but you get my idea. Like, there's no major things you have to take off in the front, because once you take the heads off, the crank and the cam, everything stays inside. It's intact. Okay, and what I was saying before with this car, they didn't replace the coolant, it corrodes, and what I was saying before, when it's even worse than an oil change, because they're both important. But let's say you forget your oil change and you let it go 6,000, 7,000 miles. Okay, you change it, you should be okay. But when they neglect, every 2 years you're supposed to replace the coolant, flush the system out. And if you neglect that, you got to think about everywhere where the coolant goes is going to get corroded, including the heater core that's buried inside the dash. And you don't want to, go through that. Here, perfect example is look how it looks in there. Look at that, all corroded in there. You know what I mean? You can imagine what the heads are going to look like. And no wonder why they probably rotted out their head gaskets. And on this particular 2001, those heads are cast iron, and the block is cast iron, which is in a way is a good thing. Usually they warp. If the heads warp, they warp not so bad, and the block won't pop. It does not warp. If this was an all aluminum engine, the engine would be garbage. The heads would be totally garbage, and the block would be bent, and you have it warped, and you would have to take it out. So I'm pretty confident that it's not. The heads may be a little bit warped. You have to machine them, or maybe there's a crack somewhere. I'm not sure. I'm not a mind reader, but I'm pretty confident that if anything, maybe it's going to need some head work, fresh gaskets, put it back together, and it should be running happy again. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the fuel injection rails. I'm going to take them off because it's in the way. You can't take the plenum off. So what I'm going to do is you got 10 millimeters here, and on the other side over there, and the same thing on the other side. You pry up the fuel injection. You take the whole fuel injection rail off. You take your connectors off, anything that's in the way. This connector too, here's the feed and the return. You take them off, then you take the plastic plenum off, and then you start to see little by little what other things you have to take off. And over here, it's got like the heater core. Again, I marked them. The hoses, take these hoses off, then you're gonna take these bolts out. They look like 15s. I think there's 3 of them. You take them out, and then you're gonna take this little housing off. This is the water pump. It's probably a good idea to replace that. And then we can probably get the intake off. I gotta see. Over here we got the EGR valve and some other components. And just, like I say, you just take off what's needed. You don't start pulling things off that you really don't need to pull off. You know, go slow, you know, and do the job right. Do it once. Refer to my videos. Ask me a question if you're stuck somewhere. I can get to you as soon as I can. And over here, there's other two exhaust bolts right here. This one here and the one on top over there. And I said, like again, I'm soaking these bolts over here. Usually I like to put heat on them. I like to put heat on the threads. But you got to be careful. You start popping off the fuel lines and you start putting heat. So that's not a good idea. You got to just be careful. All right. So after I get a little further, I run into anything that's special or kind of unique to take off, I'll note that and explain it. So I'm going to stop right now and continue. Okay. I'm going to count there when you take off the housing for the heater. The heater coolant runs through here. There's a plastic fitting here, and there's a plastic fitting on the bottom. I pried it out the best I could, and it still broke. So let me show you. This one came out. It's all corroded. No good. It broke, and it broke in here. You have to clean it out. You're gonna have to get a new fitting there. And you see this one right here? That one also broke. Let me show you. This one. So you're gonna have to get two elbows. This one with the O-ring, pull it out, clean it all up in there really, really nice. And the same thing inside the housing. I'm sorry. Inside the head, actually. When I take it off, I'll clean it up in there. And the other one was over here. I'm sorry. Water pump housing here, not on the head. Here. And then up in there. There's another one. You see it? So, I figured if you didn't take yours off, you're going to probably break these anyway. Very brittle. So, I guess, I don't know if they come in the head gasket set. You got to find out before you do the job. So you can order them and have them on hand. All right, I'm going to continue. I took the plenum off, didn't take the intake off yet. Take the fuel rack. There's a 10 millimeter bolt, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are actually right here. 1, 2, and 3, 4. All right, you take that off and then this just comes right off, this whole thing. Then you're going to take out the 8 millimeter bolts that go all the way around the plenum. They're all 1, 2, 3, 4. You see they go all the way around. I still didn't take this off yet. I just moved it out of the way, loosened up what I had to do, mark all the wires. Like I said, I'm going to just take off minimal. Maybe in the back over there, I'm going to have to take a little bit more when I get to that head. You know, it's a little crowded over here. But as you take things off, you label them. And another thing you got to take off is the power steering pump. It's connected to the head. So there's two bolts right there. I believe they're 15 millimeter, one there and one on the bottom. You just unscrew them and you can leave them in, and so you just move it out of the way. See, because it hooks over here to the head, so it's in the way. Just keep it out of the way, just like that. Okay. And you double check your things, make sure nothing's in the way. I'm gonna probably take those plugs off, get them out of there. Next thing I'm gonna do is take the manifold off. And I took the heater core. There was a kind of mount brace type of thing that feeds the coolant. I took that out of the way. And in this corner, with the harnesses and everything, I got to say it's probably going to have to disconnect maybe the power steering low sensor wire. I gotta see what it is to move things a little bit more. I mean, this head I can get off as soon as I do the take the intake off, but I'm doing both of them. It's always a good idea to do both heads. Don't do only one. You're doing all this work for you might as well do both of them. Okay. And actually, these bolts on the exhaust over here, they came right out, and the other ones in the back too. So I'm gonna continue now. Okay, I'm just about to take the heads off. All the nuts are loose for the intake manifold. And, well, I didn't take the valve covers off yet, but I decided to leave this harness on because it goes down and there's like 5 or 6 other connections that goes all the way in the chassis to release this. So I guess I can just work around it to do the head and then put it back. It's no big deal. Just mark things that you take off. Also the air valve. If yours has an air pump that comes along the side, you got to take it off from over there. And I'm leaving this bracket on right now. I'm going to take the exhaust. There's 2 exhaust bolts back here. One there and one on the other side. You take them and that should relieve the main exhaust from the manifold. Okay. And pretty much, and those plastic tees that broke, those 2 of them, they have aftermarket ones that are aluminum. So if yours didn't break, or it's just a good idea to replace them because they're brittle, the plastic ones, and they make aluminum ones for it, about 10-15 bucks. I'll put that's not included in the head gasket set, so I'll put that in the link. You replace them with the aluminum ones with the O-rings, and that should be a nice fix, a permanent fix. Okay. Again, just move it over. Pretty much everything is out of the way. All I got to do, like I said, is release the exhaust over there. And I'm going to take the intake manifold off. Then I'm going to take the valve covers off. Then I'm going to show you the push rods. And when you take off the push rods and the lifters, mark them. This is the number 1 cylinder in the front. You mark, you know, and whatever you take them out, you put them in the same exact spot because, you know, over time they wear and they have their own special wear pattern. So you don't want to mix them up. I'm talking about the lifters and the push rods. They, you know, they all have their own specific wear pattern, unless you're replacing and putting brand new. Okay, so I think that's it for now. I'm gonna go to the next step and show you what it looks like. Okay, a little bit of a note: when you're taking off the lower intake manifold, there's 2 bolts. You may want to. A lot of people are saying there's 8 bolts, 5 bolts on each side, 10. No, there's actually 12, and they're hidden. And if you try to pry up on it and think that it's down there because of the gasket seal and you're prying, you can break it. You have to. There's 2 other hidden bolts. All right. I haven't did these engines in a long time, and I was doing the same thing until I stopped and said, okay, there's something wrong. It's impossible. I'm putting a wedge over here and tapping it a little bit, and it's not even moving. There's got to be something. And what happened was there's oil in here. You see the oil, and you can't see the bolt. I loosened it. Here, I'll show you. See the bolt? And when it's with the oil, you may take yours off, not see these bolts in here, think it's just a 5 on this side and 5 on the other side, like a lot of people are saying when they're doing these engines, and it's incorrect. You have to take those bolts out too. 1 there and 1 here. Again, it was buried in the oil. You couldn't see it. Let me show you. You see? And now, the manifold comes up. Okay? I was doing it a little, I'm like, this doesn't seem right, you know, tapping it a little bit, and it's impossible for it to be stuck that bad. But I didn't see the other bolts, and like I said, I haven't did these engines since they came out in 2001, so I forgot about it. So that's just another quick tip as you're taking it off. I don't want you to break anything. Okay, when you take the exhaust off, all right, you're going to have a bolt here for the oil level stick. You just pop it out, and it comes off. You see, this is the oil stick right here. It just basically comes right out of its own has a little O-ring, and it pops out once you take off this bolt over here. I just wanted to show you how bad the head gaskets are in this car. I just pulled this gasket, this manifold off, and let me show you. Oh, it's better in here, I guess. You see the water in there? You see that coolant? That coolant is not supposed to be in there. What's this? Okay. That head is definitely blown. Head gasket or the head, I don't know yet. Stay tuned because we're going to find out exactly what happened with this one. And when you take your lifters off and the push rods and everything, here I put them on the floor. You can put them on a cardboard, but I orientate it as if I know that this is the front of the engine and that's the number one cylinder, and we go that way. You could put it on a piece of cardboard, but I'm going to clean everything up so it doesn't really matter that I have them on the floor. But you line them up like that, right? Then this comes out. See? Okay. And then we put that just like this, the way it came out. All right. And the same thing with the push rods. These are the push rods. You see them? These are pretty. They got, well, they're all, I guess they're all right. They're worn, you know, but you can see the wear patterns on these. And make sure you put them in the same way it came out. So you take it out and you line them up the same exact way on the floor. This is the bottom, this is the top. And you can just line them up right there. And do the same thing on the other side. The back is going to be obviously a little bit harder because it's in the back. And once you take all the push rods out, then you're going to see your head bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and over here 5, 6, 7, 8. And you got to loosen those off, and then the head comes off. And the same thing in the back. But like I said, the back, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this bracket off. Take this bracket off. I have to take the exhaust bolts out. And, you know, it's a little bit harder because it's in the back. And then we're going to see exactly, I'm going to take this head off first and see exactly where it blew, what blew. Okay, one of the head bolts over here, it's a 14 millimeter head bolt, is blocked. Let me focus. It's blocked by the exhaust manifold stud. So what you're going to do, you're going to take what is this? This is a 732 socket, and you put it on the end here. A lot of people don't realize that. And you can unscrew it. Go slow and unscrew it so you can get to the bolt right here. Okay, I finally got the head off, and this is what happened. This is what happens when you don't replace your coolant every 2 years as recommended. First of all, clogged the radiator, overheated the engine, warped the heads, and that's what caused this problem. But I'm going to show you other things. Over here, the combustion chamber from here to here, here's the gasket. When you take the gasket off, you can clearly see, this is a water jacket right here, these holes. And obviously the water goes right into both cylinders because it's blown. You see the darkness. I'm going to put a level on this, is going to be warped. And also you can see over here how the water was going right into the combustion chambers. And let me show you over here in the car. I showed you on the exhaust, and here, that water is not supposed to be in there. This is coolant. Let me show you. Hold on. When it warped, the water that goes from here to the head went into the combustion chambers. And you check that as you put a little air, just a little bit. And you can see the water. And that's what happened. And that's only this side. I didn't take the other side off yet. Okay, well, this is why one good thing about steel heads is I just cleaned it up and they are not warped. And there is no gap underneath there. This is a 2000. You can see it. 2000s. 0.05 millimeter. And this is the problem area where it blew out. And it does not go under. Anywhere you put it, so see, it was right in this area right here. Right there. Does not go under nowhere. I can even see it if I look on the side. I can see there is no light at all. That's one good thing. If this was an aluminum head, 100% would have been warped. 100%. Maybe even you had to get rid of it. You couldn't even mill it. Because this is where the water jacket is. This is where it failed, right here. And basically it's the gasket that failed. You see, over here, on the other side is where it failed. This is the water jacket. This is the cylinders right there. That's where it failed. The gasket failed. The gasket failed because the car overheated, and the coolant was not changed. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Another thing on this one. This is a water jacket right here. Look at this. Look at this. What's in there? All this crap. That's a nice water jacket support. I had to clean this all out. Basically, the car looks like the coolant was never replaced. You know, they just put gas in it and drove it. You know? And that's okay, I guess, because that's why I get these cars. Anyway. But I try to save people money. My channel is about saving people's money. And again, I'm going to take off the other head. We're going to see what's the situation with that. It's pretty much probably going to be the same thing. But you never know. All right. And then I'm going to take all this stuff off and I can explain how I took that off too. Okay. I just took the back head off. It's easier to get the bolts for the exhaust flange right there from underneath. Then from up here, because you get better leverage. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You just move things out of the way. Again, I have the harness. It's still hooked up. I just moved it out of the way. And the same thing happened with this one. Same exact thing. You see where it failed? You see like this is all sealed? Well, this is just oil from taking it off. But basically, it's all sealed pretty much all the way around until you come to here. And that's a coolant hole right there, and there. And that's when the coolant, under pressure, squirts into the cylinder. And that's exactly what happened. It blew. My guess it was because it was corroded, not necessarily overheated. It overheated because it was corroded. The coolant system, the radiator was corroded. And little by little, it just blew. It didn't necessarily overheat and blow the gasket. It was the opposite way around. It was corroded and it just let go. See right here? That's the coolant passengers. You see this part? It's supposed to all be even. It's supposed to all be even with no, see over here? With no, it should be uniform. I know it's hard to see for not a mechanic. This, you know, you can't really tell, but that's what I'm telling you. Like if you look over here, you can see like it's all gray pretty much all the way around except here and there. And like I just said, that's the coolant hole, and that it was squirting on both sides of the cylinders. And that's what we're pumping water in there. And not as bad as the front one, but it doesn't really matter. When you do a job like this, you don't do one side. You do both. You see the coolant? There's still coolant in there. And a little bit it's from taking the heads off, but it's blown. So that's the removal. The back one took me about an hour. I mean, I don't rush, you know. I do it. I just try to move out, you know, unnecessary. I don't like to take things off that's too much. Just enough to get it done. Okay, and when you replace the head gaskets, you always use brand new head bolts. Well, on this particular model, you use the brand new head bolts. Don't reuse the old ones. They're torqued to yield, meaning that once they're torqued, that's it. They lose their tensile strength. So you have to get new ones. And I could put a link on the head gasket set I got. I got it for like $90. I mean, it's a decent. It's an American-made brand. I mean, if you want, and it comes with the head bolts. How can you go wrong? It comes with the head bolts and everything else you need. All your gaskets, everything. Here's the head gaskets. I'll show you what a new one looks like. That's the new head gaskets. And of course you got to torque them around. I'll put the specs, or the torque specs and the torque steps, how to torque them down, and we'll continue from there. Okay, so what you want to do too is you want to it's a good time to flush out the heater core. The hoses, I left these hoses on for that reason. You back flush it this way, let it come out this way, and then vice versa. You do it both ways until it's really, really nice and clean. This one was filthy. And the same thing with the, what you do is you use I use a regular water hose. And same thing with the main radiator that comes, I left it hooked up over here for that reason. And it flushes out the water pump. And the block, all the water passages in the block, everything was filthy. All right, you want to do that. You want to give the new head gasket a nice fighting chance. And then you get a little water, you get a little water on things. What you want to do on the cylinders, because everything is metal, steel, and it's going to rust right away. So you can get like a little scouring pad, very fine, with a little bit of WD-40 on there. And you can just, with your fingers, wipe everything nice and clean. You don't want to have any rust spots, really hard rust spots. You want everything, and then just keep it oiled until you're ready to put the cylinder heads on. And the same thing with the block over here. You got to clean this all off. Over here too. You gotta make. What I like to use, a single edge razor blade. Let me show you. Same thing with the heads. Okay, bear with me. Okay, what I like to do with the heads is the same thing with the single edge razor blade. I like to hold it straight, brand new, and go like this all the way around, with two brand new razors. Do it once with a brand new one, and then clean it up with some carburetor cleaner in a rag, and then do it again and make sure you got everything clean on the cylinder heads and the block. And also, I use this scraper too. All right, this scraper, like for instance, in the back over here, I didn't do this one yet. What I do is I use a brand new scraper, and you don't want to gouge it, and you just get off all the material first, as much as you can with this, and then clean it up. And then, again, you go with this straight, and you scrape it straight, all the way around, everywhere, nice and clean. Clean it with carburetor cleaner again, and clean the cylinders nice and clean. Then lubricate the cylinders with a little bit of oil on your finger on all of them. Try not to get no oil on the surface deck over here. Clean this again with a nice clean rag. Make sure it's nice and clean, because that's a big one. And then once you have those surfaces cleaned, what you can do again, it's always good for, especially with a head gasket problem, you're gonna have to measure your block the best you can. This one's a little too long, but it did work. Here, let me zoom this out so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so it did work, but this one's a little too long. This is I think a 30 incher, but it works. You can put it here and here, get an idea that it's not warped. And the same thing in the back. You use this with the feeler gauge. Try to do it in a crisscross manner, like this way, and this way. And try to, make sure that the gauge doesn't go underneath the 2000s. A 2000s feeler gauge, like this. That can't go under. That's not supposed to go under. Okay, but like I said, a cast iron block, you're good to go. It's an aluminum block, You especially got to check it because they can warp. All right. And once you get that all cleaned up and it's in spec and it's good to go, then they're good to put the heads back on. What I'm going to do with my heads, you don't have to do this if you don't, but I'm going to replace the valve stem seals. You can do that. It's a good idea, especially if you keep in the car. It's a good idea to do them so they don't leak and burn oil, at least through the valve stem seals. You just take the valves off. And this and these old school engines, 2.4, there's only 6. There's only 12 on the whole engine. You know, usually there's 4 of them on each cylinder. But anyway, it's just I'm gonna do that. Just take them off, put all fresh ones on here. I cleaned it all up already. Check the whole surfaces. Everything's good to go. Clean it all again. Cleanliness is the best thing when you're reinstalling. Gotta make sure everything's clean, because you don't want to do this job twice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video now, and let me show you again what I told you about these plastic. Well, these are aluminum that go on the heater core and on the water pump. The water pump is over here. There's one that matter of fact, it's still broken in there, the piece. I'm going to clean it all up. All right, that one is there, and there's another one on the intake manifold. That's this hole right here. You clean it up, and the other one that I'm going to replace is right here on the water on the it's like a tensioner heater hose, like little bracket. Here's the other one, and just replace them because they break. I mean, all I did was just pry it a little bit and it snapped. So they have these. If you want to look at the part, I think this was $15. It's right there. 470, 65 HP, and made out of aluminum with replaceable O-rings. Just a little, you know, it's a good idea to use those. All right, so when I continue with the video, I'm gonna have both heads on, and I'm gonna take it from there. And the specs for the heads I'm gonna leave in the video in the description. I don't want to say the wrong things right now. I have to look in the book and the torque specs and the sequence of how you torque them down. That'll also be in the description. Okay, I just installed both heads and get ready to put the rocker arms and push rods on. If you want to know the specs, I'm going to put them in a link below. But what you're going to do, you're going to torque them 37 pounds. And it's gonna be like you're talking from in to out on both of them. So it's gonna be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you torque them first to 37 pounds, all of them. Then you're gonna have to have an angle torque wrench to torque them an additional 120 degrees. So you're gonna have to have an angle torque wrench. Okay, and the same thing with the back. And after that, you're gonna have the I put the exhaust on in the back. All right, there's 8 bolts, and I use the deep socket 1/2 inch, and for the flange, I use a 15 millimeter on both sides from underneath the car, and that's secured. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna clean up the intake, blow out all the crap that's in wherever the water flows, clean it all up, and I'm gonna install that. I'm gonna do the lifters and push rods, then the covers, and then the intake manifold lower, and then stop it there and explain what I did, and if anything that you should be made aware of, anything, you know, out of the ordinary. I'm gonna also put the exhaust in the front. I didn't do that one yet. Okay, so now I'm installing the intake manifold. And what you're gonna wanna do is make sure that the surfaces on the heads and on the block are nice and clean. And the gaskets on this particular one, they have little pins right there, one there and one right here. And they go right here so it doesn't slide down. Goes like this. See, nice. And do the same thing on the other side. And my kit came with two different types of, where are they? Two different types of the bottom pieces that go here. You want to make sure this is the newer style, the two. You see, this one also has the little divots right there, and they go right here, and this goes like this. And what you want to do is you want to put sealant, a little bit of sealant, RV sealant here in this corner, and over here, and the same thing on both sides. And you just mount them like that, and then you could put the manifold on. Okay, and what are you gonna do? Like I just told you, you're gonna put the sealant underneath when you lay it down and on top, just in the corners. Okay, you see what I did there? And then you put the intake manifold on, and you're gonna torque them. Install the intake manifold, and it has 12 bolts. Like I told you, there's one over there that was hidden when there's oil in the engine, and over here. And you're going to do it from the inside out, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. In other words, just dispersing the pressure outward. That's what they want. It's 83 inch-pounds. That sounds kind of weak to me, but that's the spec on them. I put them to 90. And it still feels a little loose to me, but I double checked the specs and that's what they are. So, you know, that's how it is. Okay, now I'm gonna put the plenum on. People call it the upper intake. And there's a couple of things to watch out for. Over here's the EGR. It gets very hot. Water passes through these two. Okay, and there's a seal here that's on the plenum. That's right here. Now, sometimes these could leak. See, board, I got to clean this out. This is where water passes through. All right, it aids in the warming up of the vehicle. And they can leak sometimes and leak into the oil, and you can think you have a head gasket problem. It'll give you that milkshake that I was talking about in my other video, how to the 3 symptoms of a blown head gasket. All right, and they're known for that. And this is plastic. Take it off with one hand. But anyway, under here, what you got to look for is this area. Hold on, let me just try to take this off. All right. Okay, like I said, the water passes through here and here, and this sometimes it gets distorted with a lot of heat because of the EGR tube that runs through there. And what you want to do is make sure that this surface is level. Okay. See? Like you make sure that this area is nice and flat, just like the rest of the area. It's not burnt or melted in, because if it is, then you're going to need a new plenum, upper intake. All right? So that's if you miss that and you put it back and it mixes with oil, you're going to think you didn't do the head gasket properly. So that's a big one on these cars too. All right? So when you replace it, like I said, just make sure that this area is intact. And that area is right here. And this tube is exhaust gases. This gets very hot. And for some reason, if the engine overheated, or not overheated, but got super hot, it could melt the plenum. All right? So I'm going to put that on now. And I'm going to torque those bolts down. And what I did, I put the bypass exhaust. It's pretty straightforward. The little EGR tube right here. And I'm going to continue. Okay, it's also a good idea to take off the throttle body. Look how, I don't know how yours is going to be, but this is all clogged. It has to be cleaned out. Same thing with the throttle body. Look at this. water. This is supposed to be just coolant in here, you know. Look at these big chunks. This was not even working. You gotta clean it out. And it's a good idea to clean out the throttle body too, as far as the throat over here, nice and clean, before you put it back on. And the gasket, the gasket is in the headset, so that's good. And clean it. I'm going to clean it all up, put it back on before I put the plenum back on. When you put the plenum, the upper intake gasket on, make sure there's a tube here. Make sure the tube goes in the little channel over there, and underneath there's a little clip. You see these clips? They clip in. That's these right here. You see? In the center. It's a little, the breather tube goes there, and it goes right into where the valve is over here. Okay, and then it just stays just like that. I finished putting the intake plenum on. Okay. Spark plug wires in the back. Got your coil here. I put the new bracket. If you're here, you see the brand new heater core aluminum elbows instead of those plastic ones. There's another one in the back you can't see. Install that. 3 15mm bolts, that installs that. Over here you got another 3 15mm bolts for the alternator. You hook up your coolant lines. The valve over here. You know, everything that you should have marked. And you reverse the procedure. It's pretty much ready to go. It's going to put the air cleaner on. And what else? And then we're going to get ready to fire it up. Put oil in. Well, first I'm going to drain all the oil, whatever's in there, blow it all out. Put fresh oil in there, fresh coolant. Check for leaks, then start it up. Okay, I just fired it up about 5 minutes ago. All right, everything's running good. What you want to do, if you don't have a lift, you want to go underneath there, make sure there's no leaks. Don't rev the engine. You know, let it come to idle. Let the fan circle one or two times before you rev it a little bit more. And this one, if you remember in the beginning of the video, it's still, well, it's cold, but it's still blowing a little bit of smoke. It looks like a head gasket because, if you can imagine, the whole exhaust system is saturated with coolant. Now, there's two ways to do that. Either you run it, but you can't really like run it on a highway because you'll get pulled over. But I'm going to run it, idle it, you know, rev it up a little bit, go up and down a block, but not on the highway until it dries up. I mean, sometimes they don't, you know. I hope this one does, because the only other way is to replace the exhaust, like the muffler that gets saturated. You know, some mufflers have insulation. That insulation gets saturated, and sometimes it just takes so much longer. But when I first started, there was a big cloud in the garage. Now it's starting to precipitate. But don't get worried when you do your job and you think, oh, something went wrong. It's just completely normal. When you first start it, 5 minutes of running, the hose should not be rock hard. Okay, now she's circulating. You gotta, you know, the bottom hose gets hot first, then the top hose. Now she's circulating. It shouldn't be rock hard. And the way she's running, she's idling pretty smooth, considering that there's still so much in the exhaust. And what you do is you check your coolant. Like I said, you go underneath, you check for any leaks. Even the elbow I put there, everything looks good. The back one, you can look down there. You don't see anything leaking. Like I said, if you have any questions, you could easily just, you know, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Just don't rush, you can do it. You know, this job, it all depends. If this job can be $1,000, maybe even more. It all depends what year, what what they charge or whatever, but you could do it yourself for a couple of $100. Not only do you save a lot of money, but you have a little bit of pride that you did it yourself. All right, buddy? Or girls, guys or girls. See you in the next video. Motor Car Nut. Please subscribe, like the button. I'm trying to build up the channel so I can save people money. You know, we all can use to save some money. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.